Okay, Paul, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I would like to call to order the Park and Recreation Advisory Commission meeting for September 16th, 2021. And let's start with a roll call.
Commissioner Tencher?
Here.
Commissioner Ray?
Here.
Commissioner Means?
Here.
Perfect. Vice Chair Charmaine?
Here.
And Chair Marciniak?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we will next proceed to the Pledge of Allegiance, which Director Holland has provided the flag for. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now we have the adoption of the agenda. I have one item that might need a slight correction there. It's the adjournment, item 10. It says special meeting. I think it's a regular meeting for next November. So yes. I didn't, I know these meetings are all special.
I'll make that correction. Thank you.
Okay. It's just a technical thing. That is there any other additions or corrections to be made to the minutes? I mean, the agenda. Excuse me.
No.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. One correction.
I'll make an motion to approve the agenda for September 16th with the one correction.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call or?
Yeah, roll call vote. Sorry.
It has to be roll call.
Every time. Commissioner Ray?
Yes.
Commissioner Tencher?
Yes.
Commissioner Means?
Yes.
Vice Chair Charmaine?
Yes.
And Chair Marciniak?
Yes.
Thank you.
We will move on to the next item, which is the approval of the meeting of July 15th, 2021. Are there any comments, corrections, or deletions to be made to the minutes?
I have only one minor, but I think it is of substance, and that's on page 4, where Director Ferrans is quoted as saying, yes, we will be putting in drought tolerant stuff in there and apply drip to get it established. It is all part of our effort to raise water use. I think we want to decrease water use.
Yes, thank you. We'll make that correction.
Good catch. Thank you.
Yes, thank you on that. The only other part I have is there again, number 10. I think there was a roll call vote and there was no ayes, noes, or nay, abstain. So I think we all agreed. I think that was a consent
Yes.
part. So I think it didn't get recorded as a roll call vote. So I think it was just, we all agreed. All right, with that, is there a motion to approve the minutes with the 2 corrections?
I make the motion to approve the agenda minutes of July 15, 2021, as provided with these couple of notations.
I second that motion.
Okay, roll call again.
Commissioner Ray?
Yes.
Commissioner Tencher?
Yes.
Commissioner Means?
Yes.
Vice Chair Charmaine?
Yes.
And Chair McDonald? Chair Marciniak?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is public comment on items not listed on the agenda. And are there any public comments been submitted for this meeting?
I have not received any public comments, no.
Okay. With that, we will close that item with the option that if somebody does happen to send a email comment, that we will note that in the group. Okay, now we're on to item 7, which is the administrative and regular business items, the master plan update. I think you've been doing quite a bit of work there, Director Sahalan.
Yeah, so I just, more of a brief overview just to keep you at each meeting abreast of the work that we're doing kind of behind the scenes at this point. So through the summer, we've been working on the parks and facility inventory. And so working with Jacob Solis in our public works department, and then utilizing some part-time staff out there on the ground. So really looking at, what are obviously all of our parks and facilities, we know what they are, and then what is in them and how old it is and what we expect its life expectancy to be, and how many benches and how many picnic tables and that type of thing. So this is probably not all that exciting for the general public in the plan, but it's really one of those super useful things that coming out of this planning process, I think that'll be really useful for staff and kind of the historical record of our parks and facilities. So that's something that we've been working on. And then also putting that into a format that's useful and easy to understand. And then we've also been continuing that historic research and documentation. So, that's a fairly tedious process. So going through all the administrative records, we have some, with our, some of our new record systems, we have the ability to, use keywords and parcel numbers and things like that to try to find a lot of this historical documentation for our parks, mainly in facilities. But it's still a fairly tedious process, and you have to read through the whole thing to figure out what exactly we were getting at. And in 1970s, 80s, and 90s, we didn't necessarily keep as good of minutes from meetings and such as we do now, and obviously having the video recording. So that's a little tedious, but we're finding some funny things in there too. So I look forward to, at our November meeting, being able to share some of those with you. And one of them was a discussion, I can't remember the date, but that certain parks were dog unfriendly. We had unfriendly parks for dogs in our town at some point. So, we're finding some interesting things, but then, also some really cool things, about discussions that had happened around things even that have resurfaced probably every decade, like dog parks and, neighborhood impacts of parks. So these common themes over the last, 50 years. So I think that's going to be really exciting outcome with that. And then just, mainly having a repository, knowing those things are out there, sharing some of the fun stories, but then also making sure we have in the plan document, those really important dates, like, when a piece of property became owned by the town or how that happened. Those are the kind of things that we're really working on capturing in one place. And then amongst those things, I'm looking at kind of what the document could look like. So looking at actually the outline of the plan document. So something that, I'll bring forward to you as well to kind of evaluate, but what are the main things that we want to make sure are in there, and then as we start to move forward and build that out. So that's what we've been working on. And of course had, the part-time help this summer, doing more of that historical research part, and then some of the inventory, and then hopefully I'll be able to continue with her for a few hours a week, at least for the time being. So she has one more quarter left in college, and then fingers crossed, you always hope people will go out into the world and find a full-time job, but maybe she'll stick with us a little longer. So that's been helpful. And so upcoming, and this is all, we're all still very much on track with what we had proposed as far as the timeline for the project. So upcoming will be our community outreach and input. So we've scheduled that for January and February of 2022. So looking right now at, how we're going to format that RFP, and you'll see that in November. So the request for proposals to hire the consultant that will help with that public outreach. So we'll get input from you on that in November, and then push that out shortly after to have somebody come on, and then to be doing that actual outreach and community input, most likely in February of 2022. So we're still on schedule for that. And then the vision and goal setting, where, most likely at the commission level, we spend more time evaluating and looking at that input and deciding what that vision and goals are. So we'll be working on that in the spring. So we're on track for that. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and like I had committed to giving an update at every meeting kind of on what we're working on, and then this winter I really feel like will be we'll see a more public ramping up of this as we move through the winter and past the holidays. So, any questions?
That's great. I have one question. Do I know this is the really hard work, getting the background information and basically grunt work to kind of put it all together, get a good foundation for where we're starting from. And do we have have you got a process to format it and distribute it to the public on this, so we can put it out to people, so everybody has that information?
Yeah, so we're working on kind of how to have that in some sort of document. So right now we have a big Dropbox file where we've kept, we note all of these documents of interest that we found. And so how do you, because what we pull over is the entire council document from a certain meeting date. And so then we have to kind of extract what's meaningful to this plan out of that. So I kind of see it, as probably a spreadsheet, but it's more visually appealing to people. Is kind of how I envision it. So you're able to see, the key date and what happened, and and then maybe link back to the home document in our legislative record, so that it's easy for people to then go and read the whole thing if they want to. So that's pretty much how I'm envisioning it. At this point, it's just a big file of all of the record of interest that we found. So then working on how that's going to format out so the public can look at it and where it will live and all of those things. Working on that part.
It's very valuable information, because that will give a basis when people have a question. Where did we start from? And
absolutely.
And the other part is your helper. I know you are hoping for continuing on this thing. Is there another contingency if we don't get this helper, to kind of see if we can get some kind of process to continue this on?
Yeah, I think, I'm lucky because I feel like I have an intern, right now. And I think if there's thought that she's going to move on, then I'll search for another intern to assist. So, and there's also parts of it that I'll be working with my internal, my team on, as they have time and as it's appropriate. So, to make sure that, they're playing a role in it. And then of course, John's team, is helping in some areas as well. So definitely a group effort.
Alan.
Samantha, I understand you have these source documents in a Dropbox folder, but do they exist as PDFs, or are they in some sort of document management program? I'm just always curious how people manage such a bunch of information that has come in many different sources over a very long period of time.
So the town has a really robust document management system, but it is newer to us. And so we're still working on, I guess what you call the metadata behind a lot of this. And so the clerk's office has been working on this project for quite some time. So if you go to the town's website, and I can actually share my screen with you right now. If you go to the town's website, you're able to go to, are you able to see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So right on the front page, you'll see this button for town document library. And so this is the public side of this. And so you'll see all these different, things that you can search for. But basically, if, you can see how I've searched. So if I put in Yountville Community Park, pretty much any legislative document that has ever, that we had record of, at some point has been scanned into this system. And so the biggest thing is querying it, because it goes back so far. So you get these hits on it. And so you learn we're learning as we go along, using the parcel number instead of just Yountville Community Park can help, just different ways of searching so that you're getting a little more drilled down. And then, you can look at it by date, or sort it by date. So a lot of times, we're looking for old documents. And so, we go back to here's something from minutes from 1987 discussing the community hall. So, 1969 minutes discussing the mobile home. See, it'll pull up all these things, Yountville Community and Park, but it could be the mobile home park. So it's a little tedious, but we're getting better at it. I should say the querying part. But the town does use, this is our depository, and like I said, all of those paper files have been uploaded into Laserfish, and the system itself, finds all those keywords, and then that they call metadata that we link to. So nowadays, when I make your agenda and I make, or we approve minutes, I hit a button in our system and it automatically saves it into Laserfish. So it's very automated, but it's those old documents that are a little more time consuming and tedious. So, but that, it's something Michelle, our town clerk, it's been really like her baby, her project is getting us all of our documents scanned in, and even, maps and planning documents, those large format files have been scanned in. So, yeah, so that's where it all lives.
That's a great resource. And so I think I understood your comment about, so if we do community park, it may have over time been in different names, and slightly different names, and then also the parcel number. And so how do you link those over time? Or when you query, you have to query all of those to include everything? Or do you have essentially a query, a subquery that then when you search for a Yountville Community Park, the subquery has all the other names it's known by, and then it pulls it all together? I know it's a little wonky. I'm just curious.
Yeah, in theory, yes. But it is, the system is still a little, like you said, wonky. So we're still figuring that out. But in theory, that's how it's supposed to work. So in that, I showed you the public facing side. So on the back end, I have the ability to look at things a little bit differently too than, that public facing side. So, so yeah, so my goal would be, anytime the public's looking at those documents on that, what I just showed you, there's a link to some, there's a web link to that. And so my goal would be, in this document, and it's obviously not going to have every single thing every time the council talked about the Veterans Park bathroom, but the main thing when the project was, design was approved or something like that, we would put it in there as something of relevance to this plan. And then a link to the document is really kind of what I'm envisioning. So
thank you very much.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Great job. Any other questions or comments? Well, we're making progress. It seems a
Yeah.
little slow right now, but it's monumental to get, the foundation for this together. And then we can start setting the goals, start setting the visions that we want to go, knowing where we were and how we proceeded to that. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to the next item and the reports. The upcoming special events in the parks, Director Holland.
Yeah, so as you remember, when we discussed special event impacts on parks, I did commit to making sure at each meeting you're aware of what's coming up. So as of right now, these are the 4 events coming up between now and the end of October that are in our parks. And I see I left way off of that one. So it's September 25th, which is next weekend. We have the Walk to End Alzheimer's that starts and finishes at Yountville Community Park. They do rent out all the sites so that there's no overlap. As you know, October 2nd is the Yountville Days Festival. That's an internal event at Yountville Community Park. October 9th is the Crush Challenge bike event. It's starting at Veterans Park and ending at Yountville Park. So their parking will be at the south end of town. And then October 24th, we have the Blessing of the Animals as an annual event with our local Carol Fink, and that will be at the north end of Veterans Park. That's what we have coming up.
That's good information, and I'm glad we're actually starting to see more events happening. And the impact is a little bit, but we're glad to see some return to a normal situation here in the town. So, thank you. Any comments on this? Or okay. Well, thank you, Samantha. All right, the next item is the staff reports. Director Farron, you have the Public Works coming up here. How are we doing?
We're doing well, thank you, Chair Marciniak. I'm happy to present this report. The biggest focus that we have in Public Works right now is water conservation. So we're trying to spread the word every public meeting that we have, and we're trying to encourage conservation as best we can. The backstory is in March, Calvet told us that they're only going to be able to deliver 400 acre feet in this fiscal year, which is a 20% reduction of what we traditionally get or use from them. So that automatically transfers into a goal of 20% reduction for the water customers of Yountville. And one thing I've learned lately is people have a hard time understanding what an acre foot is. So for perspective, to give people an idea, there's 325,851 gallons in 1 acre foot. So when you take that and multiply it by 100, we have to conserve roughly 35.5 million gallons of water in 1 year. And what that translates to is if you had a 20-foot wide, 40-foot long, 6-foot deep swimming pool, which is like the size of a backyard pool, a big backyard pool, but it's a backyard pool. That pool holds about 32,500 gallons of water. So to conserve 100 acre feet, we have to conserve 1,000 swimming pools worth of water. So it's a lot of water that we're trying to conserve in 1 year. So from the town's perspective, we're doing the best we can. And our park staff have dialed back the water use from last year to this year. So to give you an idea, for the month of comparing the month of August from this year to last year, we've reduced our water consumption by 37%, saving 388,000 gallons, which is more than an acre foot. So it's about 12 swimming pools worth of water that we've conserved just in a month by dialing back the water. So we saved 40,000 gallons at Veterans Park, 43,000 gallons at Community Park, 70,000 gallons at Vineyard Park, and 79,000 gallons at Forester Park. So The parks guys are still doing the best they can to keep the parks looking good. One thing we're going to do is put out signs that say, you know, please excuse our brown lawn. There's a drought on, conserve water. So people understand why the grass or the parks look the way they do. So as that's a report on water conservation. Next big ticket item is the community park restroom project. So the schedule has come into focus. We're waiting until after Yountville days, and then the contractor is going to come in on October 4th, and the week of October 4th, demolish the existing building, prepare the pad and the utility stubs for the new building. The new building that's being constructed off-site is going to be delivered on October 14th and connected October 15th. And then the contractor will move back in and finish out the concrete and the fence railing work around the new building the week of the 18th, the couple weeks between the 18th and the 29th, but we expect the whole thing to be done October 29th. You may be aware the taco truck moved out of Community Park back to Ponchos, and we still are waiting for delivery of more bark in the upper area for Community Park. And we're also going to place bark along the Mount Path through the Washington Park neighborhood. And then in the Washington Park neighborhood, we received TDA 3, which is Transportation Development Act Article 3 grant funds to construct ADA compliant parking and access at both Three Weirs Park and Forester Park. So we're working on the design of that. We're going to have some public meetings about that before we get to construction. And the last thing is we are having some tree work done on an oak and a redwood in Forester Park, where they hang over into the driveway at 7 Landy. So 7 Landy backs up to the park. There's a tree that's been an oak tree that we had the arborist look at, and he's going to come in and do some weight reduction and then also trim up the redwood and do a deep water injection for the redwood tree there. And that is it for things that I've got going on, and I'm open for questions.
Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, John, everything you said is exactly what we all know we have to do, especially as far as water conservation. But I think what you said is absolutely correct. 99.9% of the people have no idea what an acre foot is, but laying it out like you just did in actual gallons and what a gallon equals to in swimming pools and 1,000 swimming pools, that it's pretty overwhelming. It really,
Yes.
really is. But I don't think the average per person would have any idea what 20% 100 acre feet really is. And that was a very good explanation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alan?
Yeah, I had a question about if you have a sense of how the town as a whole is doing, how the residents, you've explained very well how parks and rec are doing, but what about the residents? How are we doing?
The town as a whole is not doing as well. So while we're in this condition, I'm going to report monthly to town council. So on Tuesday, I'm going to report to town council that the town collectively in the month of August only conserved, we reduced our water use by 13.1%, not the 20% goal that we had. And if I remember the numbers correctly, last year in the month of August, we used 58 acre feet. This year we used 50. So we did reduce, but we didn't reduce up to the 20% like our goal is. And so we distributed courtesy notices, I think 39 courtesy notices in the month of August. And a courtesy notice is a blue slip that we put on the front door of the house and advise them that they're watering on the wrong day, they have runoff down the street. I can't remember what the third thing is, but it's a courtesy notice to let people know there's new rules. And if you have questions, call us. And then in the next month, if their behavior hasn't changed, we issue a courtesy notice of violation that says you really need to follow the rules and a fine may be coming. And then if they don't change after that, we send them a fine. And then ultimately, if it's really egregious, we can turn their water off.
So 39 notices probably doesn't equate to the 7% shortage that we have from the 13% in August to the 20% goal. What do you have a plan at this point as to how to get from where we are to where we need to be?
We're gonna just keep ramping up public outreach. Through the month of September, I don't know the exact number, but halfway through September, we delivered probably 40 or more courtesy notices. We have people calling. Because we have the Beacon Ion water system, we can look at people's water use at a granular level or an hourly level. So we can we're systematically going through the neighborhoods and the commercial district and identifying people it's clear when you look at the pattern of their water use that during the day they use small amounts, and then all of a sudden on a night at 11 o'clock at night, it jumps up to a drastic level for a couple of hours and then drops back off. So we've identified those as likely irrigation times. So we're reaching out to people and letting them know about those things. And the biggest challenge right now is people don't understand how long, they don't really have a sense of what their timers are set to or how much water is going out in that cycle. So we're learning if we tell them, hey, in the 3 hours that your irrigation running, you use 2,500 gallons, they're surprised by that. And it's a lot of water. Mm-hmm. And so we're getting positive feedback from people.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That Ion Water app is really handy, especially the leak detection and that sort of thing, and where you can see it while you're traveling is also helpful.
Yes.
Thank you.
What we talked about just the other day was, and not to spend a ton of time on this, but really the savings that we're looking for is going to come from people cutting back on irrigation. And that's like the number one place. And so it seems like there's a pattern of people who may have cut down to 2 days a week, but now they've doubled their hours that they're irrigating on those 2 days, which is totally defeating the purpose. So, I think John's doing a great job with his team ramping up some outreach that's really going to help educate people on that. At this point, if your lawn isn't showing some sort of distress like our parks, you're really not doing it right.
Yes.
So, that's where we're at as we end the summer, that if you've been cutting back like you should, your lawn is not going to be lush and green unless you spray painted it. So, and that's what you're seeing in our parks is that, because we haven't doubled the amount of watering time in our parks, so we cut back to 2 days a week. So I just thought I'd pipe in there for a minute.
Carol.
So are those the notices, those are residents? How is it going for the businesses, are you finding?
A lot of the businesses we've started working with early on because and starting to scrutinize things, we realized they had leaks. So we've gotten most of their leaks taken care of, and now we're struggling with the challenge of the businesses that are in the hospitality industry that rely on their facilities to look really nice.
Right.
And they're, resistant to making changes. So we have dialogue going with them, but we haven't reduced their water consumption to the level that we want yet.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Well, I think the outreach and as much public notice as we can do, especially in the parks, to remind people that, yes, we do have a critical water shortage here, and we do need to conserve, would be very helpful. I think everybody needs to be really aware that the water is not unlimited. We can't, we don't want to go there and turn on the tap and no water comes out. So we need to all take a good position on helping to make this work. So it's a tough job, John, but I hope we can all do it together.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Director Holland with the Park and Recreation general update.
Yeah, thank you. So I will be bringing forward our summer report in November for you because, summer, we still have like a week of summer. So Jennifer might be putting out all of our fall decorations, but it's not over yet, right? So I'm working on our summer report. So you'll see that in November. I did just want to give a brief update. We started our fall programs and we have fall events coming up. We opened our registration for this new brochure in August, and to date, we've registered 317 customers into 757 classes and programs, which is really exciting. So after being, down for almost 18 months, we're really excited to have 118 golden ticket members back. And of those, 44 are non-residents. So that means we have 74 residents in our golden ticket program, which I feel like is very impressive. We have 12 classes that are still being offered virtually on Zoom, and then 18 that are meeting in person. Of course, masks are required. Some classes are meeting outside, and then others inside with masks. And we wanted to give people the opportunity because, of course, just as our brochure was, coming out and going to print, we saw this spike in COVID cases again with the new variant. So we did pivot and we wanted to give people options for their comfort level. So we have some of the online classes, some in person. And Jennifer, who oversees our adult programs and excursions, she really did a fantastic job. I mean, we have 30 different classes for Golden Ticket, and it's going really well. We're in our second week now of those programs. We also had our first excursion in over 18 months on Monday. We had a small group go to the Giants game. So we started with 35 tickets and we dropped it down to 25. So we were able to have that trip go successfully and break even with the 25 people. But I think what we're seeing is maybe a slower return to those types of out-of-town excursions, and that's okay. As long as it's manageable and we break even on the bus costs. So, and the people that went had a fantastic time. We also started Little Pickers back, so our little preschool sports programs, and this is Garrett's first season taking over all of our sports programs, and he's doing a terrific job. We actually filled the first morning session of 12 kids, and we added a second one that filled. That meets outdoors, and they have stations, and this is for kids that are 3 to 6 years old. So it's really fun to watch. They meet here out at the community center out on the lawn, and they just really learn how to be around other kids and have listen to direction mainly. This isn't like competitive soccer. It's just fun. And our open gym programs also started last week, indoors with masks. We have had a great turnout for men's basketball, and then a great, what I consider a good response for pickleball as well. I think as the weather starts to change more and the time change, that we'll see those pick up as well. So we had our last music in the park last Sunday. That I feel like our music in the park was the biggest we have ever had as far as the number of people. We consistently had between 350 to 500 people. I think the first concert was one of our biggest ones. People really seemed to enjoy it, and the gathering. We've seen this new development though of people coming out at like 9 o'clock in the morning and putting their chairs out, which we'll continue to monitor next year to see if we need to set some sort of policy. I think right now everyone seems okay with it. I didn't get very many complaints, but it's kind of funny to drive into town at 10 a.m. and see 40 chairs out there already. So our last movie in the park is tomorrow night. We're showing Aladdin, the new Aladdin. Our August movie was canceled, you may have seen, because we had really poor air quality that week, and made the decision that afternoon that to cancel, which would end up being a good decision. So this will be our last one. So we ended up with just 2 movies this year, which is okay. But we have a lot coming up. It's busy. Yountville Days, obviously, coming fast and furious. We decided to move our Halloween carnival outdoors. So generally we get volunteers from Kiwanis or in the community. So if you or anyone you know want to volunteer to run a little game, that's always fun. But it is outdoors. Obviously, kids, the age group that we serve with that event can't be vaccinated. So we decided to still hold it, but to move everything outside to try to help to alleviate that risk a little bit too. So yeah, and then it's really full steam ahead with holiday activities. So a lot going on there. I did just want to share, we have had some communication from, I think, 5 community members now about requiring vaccination for participation in parks and recreation programs. And that's something that Steve and I decided really should be a council level discussion. If that's something that the county of Yountville is going to look into requiring, that the council really needs to have that conversation. I'm very closely tracking how that's happening, or if it's happening statewide. I mean, California really is the most progressive state as far as, those types of actions are concerned. It was funny, I put a listserv out, and it's on it's actually a nationwide group of parks and recreation professionals, and some states' response, was like, I can't even believe you're thinking of that. But, the city of San Francisco did, their council did mandate that. So you have to be vaccinated to participate in their parks and recreation programs, as long as you can be vaccinated. So of course, children under the age of 12 cannot be vaccinated, or people with some sort of medical exemption or otherwise. And then the city of San Jose mandates it for events with 50 people or more. So they didn't necessarily hone in on classes or anything, but for events in their facility. So I'm closely tracking that. I believe the council may have a discussion, but there's no action taking place or anything at their meeting on Tuesday. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that, we're closely tracking that. And it is something we've heard from some of our community members. And I feel that people can participate at this point based on their comfort level. And especially with our older adult programs, we really tried to make sure there were virtual and in person, because that's something we really heard from people is there is a large segment that wants to come back in person, and for their own well-being, felt like that was better for them. So offering the 2 choices at the very least through the month of October, and then longer as long as we need to based on the current environment. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just want to, being in golden ticket classes, 2nd week, you guys are doing a great job as always, but it's so nice being in person from all the Zoom meetings. We're doing that. And Dave and I were part of the group that was on the Giants game. That was really fun on Monday, getting back down to do that bus trip. And thank you for putting that together.
And it was a great job.
It was great that the Giants won too, but
that's always a plus.
Yeah. Clinched it that night, actually.
Yeah.
But we were on the bus. We already had left, so.
Oh, yeah. That's the bad part about having the bus on that you can't sit there to the final out, but
It's all good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's great. I am just overwhelmed at how the progress is being made to get all these activities back to putation on this thing. Glad that things are happening like this. I just have one question. The Zoom classes and the in-person classes. I know you had some people who could do the Zoom because they were physically not capable of really doing a lot of the classes, but with the Zoom they were able to do that. Is there some kind of middle ground to negotiate that or figure out how to somewhat do that?
Yeah, we had been talking about it. When we thought we were going to try to come back for fully just in-person classes, we do have a segment, a few people who participated and could participate solely because it was online, and how to continue that. And I think what we had decided at that point was really to work with them, on a case-by-case basis, and then also with the instructor. So, we have one person who has, very specific classes that she wants to take, and she is, not physically able to get here for those classes. And so we were prepared to kind of work with, each group. We've looked into some new technology, these things called owls that, it's a camera that pivots to the person who's talking. So we're looking, actually going to be buying one of those to try out if we do, go back to all in person. And it really came down to some of the instructors. Some of them are totally open to doing a Zoom and in person at the same time. Some of them they don't want to do that. So a lot of it kind of landed on the instructor, and if the instructor was comfortable with it or not. So, and it's ever evolving. I mean, and that's, I feel like, we were like gung ho, everything in person, things are going great, back in June when we were prepping all of this, then all of a sudden it was like, okay, what are we doing now? How are we gonna, pivot these things, and what instructor, can do what? And so we'll just continue that conversation, and I think just be nimble, and, however we can serve the most and everybody is really what we're gonna try to do, so.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know it's not an easy solution, and technically we may be able to achieve it, but the cost and trying to see the benefit of that. But I'm glad you're investigating and trying to make it work so it's including everybody in the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more. I think it's one thing. It's bittersweet that I think for the golden ticket classes now that just started 2 weeks ago, you have the facilities could break into the small rooms, and bittersweet that the after school program and the kids aren't there with the school closure because they were in the spaces. So, you couldn't have all of us there with those groups there. So it's a little bittersweet. It's the older folks are gaining and the little kids are unfortunately, but they're, hopefully all doing great at Willow, and they're all their schools that they're at.
Yeah.
Number 2.
I think so. Yeah. We'll have him back for the break camps. Thank you for your time.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Director Holland. All right, I think we've come to any commissioner comments or reports to bring to the meeting. Anybody? Alan?
Perhaps I should have brought this up when we were back talking about water, but as I was recreating on my bicycle on the Silverado Trail today, I saw a lot of water right next to the road just north of where Yountville Crossroad intersects with the Silverado Trail. And it's on the southbound lane, and it's in the ditch, and it didn't look like water, where anyone would be irrigating. And I'm just wondering if there's a rector pipe that might pass through there, or if perhaps somebody's water service, and I do know we sometimes service people that are out of town, the town limits. Could anything be going on there, or is that just something amiss?
It's quite possible that something's going on there. I can send our water crews out to take a look. Did you say it was was it north or south of Yountville Crossroad?
It is immediately north of Yountville Crossroad, where it intersects Silverado, probably within 50 yards of the turn, at the most 100 yards of the turn. And I didn't see, the water was 4 or 5 inches deep, and there didn't look like there was any landscaping there, and it just made me wonder, and I feel remiss to have not reported it earlier, but since I saw you, it reminded me, so apologies for that.
No, that's, we have water customers on both sides of the road there, and the Rector delivery line passes through there, so we'll definitely send somebody out to check it out. Thanks for the heads up.
Thank you.
Okay, that's great. I just have one comment. My wife, Margene, happened to notice that Director Holland was actually doing a little mopping on the floor when she had her knitting class. And she'd like to commend you for pitching in to and not being afraid to step up when you're short-staffed on that part.
Yeah, she was funny. She invited me over to look at your tile floors, Paul. But yes, we are in a gap right now. We don't have a custodial company for the town, and we have a request for proposals out, so we hope to have someone in a couple weeks. So in our facility as well as town hall, everybody's been pitching in to make sure everything gets done. So, but yeah, Margene walked out the other day as I was mopping.
Yes, she was very grateful that, you know, you're not afraid to do that, and that is our community spirit. We'll all pitch in if we need to. So, yeah. Thank you. That's my only comment. With that, we'll go on to the motion to adjourn this meeting here. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting to the next regular meeting on November 18th, 2021?
I'll motion that we go ahead and adjourn tonight's meeting until our next regularly scheduled meeting in November.
I second this motion.
All right, all in favor? Do we need a roll call?
No,
we can all say yes, so it's a unanimous consent.
Yes.
Thank you all very much for your time. I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right.